Friday, 2025. This is HOA Today. HOA Today is a live stream about communities, property management, association management. It is brought to you by, one moment, Zayuk. Zayuk is a property management technology company. We provide inspections, we provide software, we are able to integrate your own inspections if you have your own provider. Not many vendors, not many companies I know of provide both the inspection side and the software side, especially in terms of HOAs and condos where we have a property technology suite that is fully encompassing through meetings, through meeting summaries, voting, invoicing, budgeting, reserves, a living reserve study, various other topics and issues that come with being in a community or living in a decentralized asset ownership model. When I say decentralized asset ownership model, HOAs, homeowner associations, though that the property is the asset, there are various assets within the property, such as the roofing, the pavement, the elevated exterior elements, which could be balconies or staircases or walkways, fencing, many places, landscaping, if you have an elevator, elevators, piping, electricity, HVAC. A building and a property is a very complex system. When you purchase into an HOA, you're purchasing a share of that property into that system. Often people underestimate or maybe don't fully understand the obligations and requirements that come with the purchase of a home in a homeowner association. Of course, you have your monthly HOA fees, but it's a business. Homeowner associations are licensed businesses in the United States, often nonprofit organizations. And when you purchase a home with an HOA, you're purchasing a share of a business. And I've been saying over the last few weeks, there's a few things you want to look out for when purchasing in an HOA. One that's very obvious and most people understand is curb appeal. Are the assets being maintained effectively? Does the building, the stucco, the painting, the fencing, the asphalt look like it's degrading? Or does it look like it's being upkept, the landscaping? That one is usually pretty obvious to people too. One that people might underestimate or don't fully understand, because when people purchase homes, they often do so for lifestyle reasons. Many people are not these sorts of institutional investors that purchase to rent. Some people are, but many people, when they purchase a home, it is for a lifestyle change, for a certain type of, whether that is you want to be near a school, whether that be you want to be near your place of work. So people often underestimate too, or don't even consider too, the financial hygiene of your property, getting reserve statements from previous years, understanding what the assessments are, what the budgets are, understanding what the state of the reserves, which is the funds that are supposed to maintain the property over the coming years. And three, probably the one that gets people into that HOAs have the most conflict for, and people surely don't respect often, but they are unfortunately obligated to these rules, is understanding the governance. And this is where Zayuk really excels, is that we bring governance, rules, voting, a digital thread between your rules and your work orders and your voting system, so that rules are important, and rules are often the root of all issues within a community. So Zayuk makes rules and governance and understanding your governance, the rules under which you live by, simpler. We will continue or begin with various homeowner association current events. This from MSN, Rebecca Liebson, wondering, because Florida condos are struggling, can they be redeveloped? It's a tough time to be a condo owner in Florida, skyrocketing insurance, millions of dollars in repairs, and termination seems like an exit strategy for many of these buildings that have been poorly maintained for many years. And we've spoken about this before. Florida has insidious weather. It is hurricane prone, salt, sea, wind. It's a corrosive mixture. Termination seems like a good exit strategy. It requires selling a majority of units to developers who dissolve the condo association, tear down the building, and build a new building. Very difficult to close. Florida law requires approval from 80% of owners to terminate a condo association, but just 5% can block it. And many associations have thresholds, with some requiring 100% approval, unquote. And we spoke, I believe, yesterday about Biscayne 21, and we actually did a Google Earth flyover Biscayne 21. The developer Two Roads, who bought out 191 of the units, and I believe there were just 8 holdouts, and the Florida Supreme Court took up the matter, and I believe the court sided with the holdouts. I believe that was the case, which is a very interesting situation for Two Roads. I believe it was on appeal. But this is, again, an issue for people. We've spoken about this week in, week out, that condo owners in Florida are facing just a litany of issues that came from legislation from their state that was maybe too demanding too quickly. Not that this legislation was bad or wrong, but that the turnaround time for decades of negligence in 2 years is going to create a dysfunctional real estate market, which is difficult for Florida because many of their homeowners are not. It's a senior area. People go there to retire. People want to be in the heat, in the Florida sun. So it's a difficult issue, very sensitive issue. All right, we will continue. One interesting thing we've also been speaking about is the Minnesota Department of Commerce ombudsperson. This was we've been continuously referencing a single issue where one homeowner association had roofing done on the properties. The assessment came out to $17,000, and those homeowners who had to take on those assessments ended up suing the HOA. And one of the big pain points within that lawsuit that I believe was an issue is there was no documentation shared stating these roofs were in decline and they needed to be repaired. And that's where Zayuk again excels, where we get into a digital twin environment, an AR, VR, 3D, survey grade level, give your vendors what they want and the context that they need to do appropriate and good work without having to come to your property, do the whole inspection themselves. Let Zayu come to your property, do the reality capture, give you the reserves inspection as well, and provide you a software suite that you will use. You can use the context of your property at the survey grade level so that you can distribute that on your request for proposals, so that you can get proposals from various vendors without them having to all come to you, which is a huge cost saving for them, which gives them more. Once they see that, vendors vendors are looking for work, of course, but it will give them such a better opportunity to bid, and that will give your property the power to distribute requests for proposals at a low cost to the getting proposals, because realistically, when you have someone bid on something that they haven't had eyes on, it's a shot in the dark. And when you're able to provide them a context, not just pictures, but depending on the area, because it's pictures, of course, in addition to a visual context, an AR, VR, three-dimensional gaming. Like, no, it's not gaming, of course, it's survey grade level digital twins and models of structures. But that environment, it becomes really useful. And going back to this Minnesota Ombudsman article in KSTP 5 that brings up this issue of a townhome association having to pay out of pocket very large expenses for roofing, you have that proof. You don't need to go out of your way to distribute that information. And that's the wonderful thing about Zayuk Safe. We'll continue now. So Minnesota ombudsperson, that would be very interesting. I can imagine, I don't know how many HOAs Minnesota has. In California or Florida, I could imagine that Florida has a new rule where they have to register, where the HOA now has to register, I believe, with the state. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that was part of their new set of laws. In California, I could imagine this being very difficult. California has the most homeowner associations in the nation. I believe over 40,000. Over 50,000. And it would be a difficult it would be a difficult office to run. I don't believe it would be easy. We'll continue, but nothing really about government is that easy, to be honest. One homeowner, this is receiving often EV charging, extension cords. So let's read this. One resident with a Tesla Model S in the driveway using a plug inside the garage to charge the car. They received a warning from their HOA stating electrical cords running along the ground are not permitted. A maximum of 25 feet and apparently not drawing along the floor. HOAs have this is to be true, reputations for making the process of installing solar panels, EV chargers, and other eco-friendly home upgrades far more difficult than they should be. Well, that's a subjective, not an objective statement, but they do make it more difficult. You do have a set of governance rules that you must abide by. And again, that's the third pillar and the one that's often considered the least. You can, I mean, possibly not. um, Finances might be considered the least. I stated asset hygiene, financial hygiene, and the governance, the rules under which a person will live by being three of the primary considerations when purchasing in a homeowner association. And between the ones that are considered the least, I would say possibly financial hygiene, with governance second, and then asset hygiene being the primary one. Usually people like to live in a nice place, so they notice those things. But also, people will sometimes state, oh, I like low HOA fees, so they go for one that is low, but they don't consider that this is a business. You're investing in that business. So, unlike a renter, if you're a renter, you have a bit more incentive, in my ideal, or less incentive to want those fees to increase, because if the HOA's fees increase, likely renter fees in the same complex will increase. So as a renter, you don't really have the incentive to have HOA fees increased because you don't own that. You're living there. You have a set date to leave, or you're on a contract that states you can leave whenever you'd like, whatever the contract might state. But for a homeowner, that's a different consideration. That is a business you're investing in. And the degradation of that property is only going to compound, which will compound the cost. And as the owner, that cost burden lies on you. And therefore, it's a different consideration. Again, you want to make sure. So I said three and four, and this one I can imagine being fairly difficult, but knowing who the president and the manager are, two, are important. These are the people that are going to be in charge of for many people, their primary asset, a large portion of their wealth is held in their home. What does that mean? So the people that are running this portion of your wealth should be, you want them to have, you want them to be running it appropriately and well. Doing that is not easy. Doing that is not simple. Doing that is much more difficult than I just stated, but it is a consideration to have. So reviews of your property association, reviews of the property manager that runs the association, possibly finding out if you can speak with the board member before to find out what is the state of this place? How are you feeling about it? I'm thinking about investing. Is that a good idea? Not? And the board member, or go to the home itself and see if you can meet an owner and speak to them and say, hi, how is the board member or the management company? That can be very biased because, again, HOAs are notorious for people not liking their boards and not liking their managers or having disgruntled sentiments toward them. So you might get a biased opinion if you ask a normal board member or normal owner who isn't on the board. Whereas if you get a board member, they will be able to give you a bit more insight, or they will be able to come and give you some insight with more information, more knowledge, more ability to make a credible determination on whatever question you may have. But that's not too easy based off of what I know in real estate. But the first three you can do. You can find the asset hygiene by walking the property. For most people, that's not that simple either, but curb appeal. Two, financial hygiene. Ask for financial documents, reserve studies, budgets over years, reserve studies over years. Ask about any special assessments that have happened or are in the queue. The association's talking about it. People are considering, we might need a special assessment this upcoming year for some reason, which the reserve study should help you understand as well. That is it. And again, Zayuk Safe brings you a protocol, a software. We as a company, Zayuk, come to your property and give you an inspection as well with reality capture technology. So you get that context. Okay. So we'll go through another Reddit highlight on HOAs, subreddit tree law. A couple shared an email they received from their HOA in their new townhome. They were told all the cherry and maple trees on their property would need to be cut down within the week. And there were supposedly 8 reasons for removing those trees, including potential damage to water lines and foundations from the roots and proximity of the trees to the house. All the reasons are total BS. Roots don't damage foundations or water lines that are in good repair. They seek out leaky lines due to water. That was a comment by a Redditor. That was a quote comment by a Redditor. That was not me. Nothing I give here is legal advice. And another commenter said that an HOA drain pipe did clog with roots. No, and the contractor stated, again, these are commenters on Reddit, so you have to take everything you read with a few grains of salt. Trees are I believe trees can degrade foundations, but I'm not a tree expert, so let's just ask Claude. Do trees degrade piping and building foundations? I do know that they can we've all seen it elevating sidewalks and asphalt. And tree experts, there are experts in here. So again, when you get a reality capture from Zayuk, and we spoke about this yesterday and 2 days ago, we take reality captures of any area that you may feel you need to manage. Yesterday, we spoke about Bull Valley HOA in Illinois that had the covenant. It was actually in the rules that they needed to maintain to some degree a 25-acre space. Well, with 25-acre space, you can let the trees grow, but you still want a survey grade level inspection of that space so that you can begin to organize any maintenance across that and make sure you know what's going on that 25 acres that people aren't living on over years, which is where our reality capture technology really comes into hand. So, where we're talking about trees, so that's one instance of more of an exterior feature that we also capture, but also if you have trees on your property, we can give you the pictures. We create again, survey grade level inspection. That means you can have all the trees on your property documented. You can have those trees, the pictures and the models of those trees distributed out to tree experts so that the tree experts can start making assessments, and you can get vendors from multiple tree experts, and you don't necessarily need them to come onto your property to make a proper assessment. This is where these things can come huge. They can take measurements, the tree to the sidewalk, the tree to the asphalt, the tree to the building. How tall is the tree? This is where this reality capture stuff really goes to a different level in this digital twin dimension. And again, digital twin, according to Zhen Huang, is one of the new frontiers of AI. He spoke about, I believe this was at the White House one day, digital twin being one of the new industries that AI brings out. And it makes sense for a couple reasons. One, I have heard that, let me explore this with Claude. Give me one. Okay, I was wrong. Either way. Okay, here we go. So I first asked Claude, no, that was not it. What percentage of human brain power is allocated to vision? And Claude said 20 to 30% of the cerebral cortex. Then I said I thought it was 90% because I thought it was 90%. And that 90% is the information processing bandwidth, meaning how much sensory information flows into the brain. Vision does account for roughly 80 to 90% of the sensory information we take in from our environment. However, this is different from how much brain tissue or processing power is dedicated to vision. So my next question, so here it is, information input, I process. Sorry to get into this, guys. I'm just trying to talk about digital twin and why AI and digital twin and getting our reality capture inspection is so important, because I'm not going to continue with this. I'll just continue. When you want to release AI, a lot of enterprise AI is probably going to be done with a visual context. And not to say that the textual context isn't going to be significantly powerful, but the bandwidth, when we think about GPUs, the NVIDIA technology that has made them the most valuable company in the world, they started as graphical processing units. So it's already built for vision, and just so happened that you can also train text models on it as well. That's where we come into play, and where our, we build these models on NVIDIA technology through the cloud, of course, through our cloud provider. But at the end of the day, you want to unleash AI, it will be through likely vision. And that's why we know we need to come to your property as a technology company with the capability to do it. And unlike other software providers who stop at the software, Zayuk doesn't stop at the software. We believe the software is vitally important to the information distribution and the maintenance of integrity across many domains, whether that be governance, whether that be maintenance. The software and the way the software works with the user is important. But in addition to that, it goes past software with property. Those are physical buildings with physical systems, HVAC systems, electrical systems, structural systems, painting systems, roofing systems, asphalt systems, all with different types of materials and maintenance needs and professionals that understand how to get the job done. And that's why software is important, because the information to do all those things is how things can be managed more effectively, how ownership can be handled more effectively. Thank you, everyone. We are going to stop HOA Today. HOA Today was brought to you by Zayuk. Hopefully you all have a great weekend. Hopefully everyone had a fantastic week. Remember, the weekend is not something to look forward to. You can enjoy Monday as much as you enjoy Saturday, or enjoy Tuesday as much as you enjoy Sunday. But thank you, everyone. I appreciate for you tuning in, and hopefully